Good day everyone, so a couple of common takes on Nilou. She's nothing without her best in slot. Nilou in these parallel BiS currently is more doable than feasible. F2P Nilou teams used to be able to do stuff under 30 seconds and now they can't even do it under a minute, and Kokomi Clan and others like him are just misrepresenting the truth because they're not F2P friendly. Well, I've got some surprise news for you. So in the background is my C0 Nilou on my alternative account, and yes, she is not even fully built, she's not even fully leveled, and there are of course no constellations. This is as F2P as you can probably get. This is the type of build that I'm going to go for. Obviously things could have improved on the build as well, so there's lots of room to improve, but that's okay. Here is Kokomi and obviously the rest of the stats. So let's discuss a couple of things whilst I go through the builds in the background. Now, a big thing that a lot of people do not understand about Nilou sort of teams is that they can be very, very skill dependent and very, very dependent on how you position and how you manage all of your cooldowns. This is the thing. Nilou's teams are not straightforward to play, but that's what makes them fun. They are uniquely positioned for you to sort of have a lot of skill expression, and a lot of people might say, well, that sounds not obvious because don't you just hydro dendro kaboom kaboom? No, as I'll sort of demonstrate in the BiS, every single thing, how you funnel energy, how you set up your cooldowns, how you interplay your dendro and hydro applications, all of these things make a very, very big difference. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this silly notion that Nilou's teams can't clear chambers in under 1 minute, so let's do it. Right, so the wolves are first, and you guys will see it's going to be pretty fun. So we sort of set up the hydro and then an E and then Q onto Traveler here. What you'll sort of see from the Technology Traveler sort of duo is that we want to try and keep the Traveler's elemental burst as filled as possible because she is going to be quite important in terms of the dendro application. And yeah, this is sort of what it is. We just make sure we manage our jellyfish uptime as well. Since we're running a triple EM build on Kokomi, it is so important to be able to have constant jellyfish uptime in a chamber like this where everyone is constantly bleeding. But yeah, nonetheless, you can see again dendro, hydro, there's Kokomi doing a little charge attack, applying another additional instance of hydro. There's some more enemies. There's the little traveler, there is Technology, and we're just going to hit these two, hit them. It's pretty simple, and we're just going to sort of slightly pause the final frame, and it's right there, and boom, it's pretty much over. And of course, just to confirm to you that indeed the clock was at 9:03, there is a Thunder manifestation. So, talking about Thunder manifestation, let's go through all of the chambers now, and let's see how reasonable it is for this Nilou team to sort of do things. So note that the clock was at 8:57, so assuming your first team did it in about a minute, let's see how fast the Nilou team is sort of going to do it. And of course, we're just going to hit a couple of headshots. So this is why I typically build my Technology here with a lot of crit rate, crit damage instead of crit rate, because if I get headshots with these charge attacks, then they automatically crit, so I get the maximum amount of damage. Interesting thing here about Thunderbird, and this is potentially where Nahida can be quite useful. It doesn't matter, as you sort of saw there, where he is, as long as you can get the dendro and the hydro to him, you can sort of take him out. But hey, look here, with Kokomi obviously giving us tanking and healing abilities, we can sort of pretty much be very relaxed in our positioning, quickly heal up a bit. It really doesn't matter. And as you'll sort of see, we're going to pretty much clear this chamber in about 1 minute, 1 minute 10. And obviously, I think that's very reasonable from an F2P sort of standard. That means the walls will take you about 1 minute, 1 minute 10, 20, 30, even 40, and still your Nilou team will give you enough comfort to clear Thunder manifestation. So, in my opinion, I think it's pretty reasonable. Right, so let's go on to the second floor, second chamber. First off, right here you'll notice something very interesting that's going to happen. I'm going to put down everything, and then I'm just going to wait slightly, because what I want to do is I want to get my travelers a little flower down before these enemies hit with their pyro, because there is a chance that they'll extinguish my flower and then all my dendro is going to be gone. And whilst I was speaking on that, the enemies are almost gone. So yeah, this is the power of Nilou teams in an AoE. As you can see there, pretty easy. So now let's quickly target this guy. I find find it's more consistent to target this enemy, push him back towards the rest of the mob, and of course now just keep them all there with Technory's Taunt. And yeah, this is just going to be free. Apply Dendro, apply Hydro, apply Dendro, apply Hydro. We're just quickly waiting there for Nilou's Elemental Burst. Apply Hydro to everyone, more kaboom. Yeah, this seems very, very simple, but a lot of people will not be able to sort of play it towards the standard because they might go to the wrong enemy and so on. They might get the enemies to be separated, and in my case you can see it just by cleverly positioning, just by understanding which enemies are mobile, which are going to come to you, and all these sorts of things. You can have a pretty decent clear time. So yeah, look at this, we've got more than enough time on the clock, I think, to just sit back, relax, taunt the enemy a bit. You can see I'm just messing around. 840 for most people is going to be pretty reasonable. Right, so now we've got the little cryo, lava chills, whatever, and look again at the clock. I sort of put it deliberately like at 8:15 sort of here to sort of show you that you need no more than 1 minute 15 to sort of really clear this floor, and it's not that difficult. I think the biggest thing that you just need to be aware of is that because you're not giving your Kokomi HP and sort of stuff like that, you might be in a position where she can die. So I just sort of wanted to make this very clear. You have to be a bit more careful in terms of how you iframe and how you do things, but Kokomi being Kokomi, look here, just sort of takes it in a stride. It's not the end of the world. Look at that, she's frozen and she still gets healed up. It's pretty funny. Yes, me throwing means that we can still clear these Spiral Abyss, and you can see I'm not trying my best. I'm just sitting back, relaxing, and of course we know that the Dendro application is going to absolutely destroy these little electro lava chills. It's just going to absolutely eat. Look at that, they're pretty much both almost taken care of, so the only thing you need to worry about are the little cryo ones, and then the electro ones are pretty trivial. So with me fooling around, we pretty much did this again in about 1 minute, so again, that's a very good thing for the Nilou teams. Right, so let's address the big dino in the room, the single target boss. Well, it's not really a single target boss. So what's the deal with the flying dino? Well, it's the fact that he moves around a lot more so than the single target DPS requirement that makes him, well, not only difficult for Nilou, but for some other teams as well. And I think what you need to realize about him is that if you're going to use Nilou on the first halves, and you're going to use a Nilou as underpowered as mine, by the way, you should be using a much better built Nilou and much better built teams. What you're going to need to do is consistently hug him so that you can get the Nilou you can get as much of Nilou's Dendro cores triggering. Because the problem in this current team is actually not Nilou, it's not Kokomi, it's the fact that I have to consistently manage my Dendro units. If you've been really paying careful attention, you would have noticed I had to swap to Technory, swap to Traveler, just because I don't get her burst up, even with 210% energy recharge. That's like the big problem in this team. The thing that makes Nahida so valuable is that she applies Dendro wherever this thing moves, which means you can spend more time on, let's say, a Kokomi to trigger more sort of bountiful cores, which then would lead to damage being triggered, which implies more Dendro being triggered, and it just makes it life a lot easier. With this sort of team, the failure is not Nilou, it's the contribution from the rest of the team members. This would almost be the equivalent of trying to play Tartaglia or Child International, but not using Sucrose or Kazuha, but just using Sayu or Jean. This is literally that equivalent sort of situation here. Yes, it can work, but the result's going to be a lot less, or it's not going to be as well in a single target case. But nonetheless, I mean, 8-10 is not too shabby. Once again, do consider that my teams are not fully built, and I did it deliberately that way. Well, not deliberately, I mean, it's an F2P account. I just cannot do things faster. Right, so let's finally sort of just wrap up the video whilst we're just messing around on the sort of final chamber with this team. So a big misconception that a lot of people have is that Nilou is bad, whereas they don't realize that they're comparing their units that they've had for 2 years against a unit that's only been released recently. Once you adjust for skill and for build and for all of these things, an F2P Nilou without her best in slot weapon and without Nahida, and certainly better built than what I'm sort of showing you here, is more than viable enough in the spiral BiS. There are, I think I've shown like 2 chambers where we did it in about 1 minute and less, and I think that in and of itself just sort of tells you that Nilou is not too bad. And honestly, I would give her or this team, as it is built right here, a 5 out of 6. In other words, for 5 out of the 6 chambers, I think it's a pretty easy. I think it's a breeze. I think it's very accessible to a lot of F2P players. Obviously, if you have Nahida, I think the little dinosaur becomes even more trivial and so on. But that in and of itself is more a failure of the current Dendro units than Nilou. You gotta be compared like for like, and I think with a lot of the Nilou conversations, a lot of people don't do it, and that's why they sort of kind of miss out on what makes this character so great. Alright, that's it from my side. Thanks for watching. Cheers.